Do. And welcome everybody. What's up? This is the Weekly Jargon. I'm Abel Perez.
Jose Rodriguez.
And Rohi Zachariah.
And we are here, gentlemen, talking about service clubs today. Service clubs, I think, are, something that we're all part of here in our community. And most folks, I think, find themselves, either being invited or actually being part of service clubs. But what does that mean, right? What happens within a service club? Maybe some of our viewers may be considering joining a service club. So we're just going to kind of dive into all of the different dynamics of it, and then eventually kind of get to the idea or the question of, are service clubs failing, right? Or, starting to drift away. And if so, what's kind of been the alternative, right? So let's first and foremost dive in. I'm with a couple Kiwanis here. So fellas, why don't you tell me a little bit about the Kiwanis Club? What is it exactly? What does Kiwanis even mean?
Well, I'm going to let the...
You're going to defer it over?
I'm going to defer this over to our past president here, Rohi. Rohi, you can go ahead and kind of give us the history of the Greater Madera
The whole
Kiwanis.
history? Oh, geez. Okay.
Let's do like a 15-year history.
Yeah, sure. We'll cut it short. So, the Kiwanis Club is something that, for one, just like I think Rotary and Lions, it's in every community. Every city has at least one group. And the focus of it is kids. I mean, that's the K in Kiwanis, is that the money raised is to go to kid organization, to kid needed services. So that's what we focus on.
I did not know that.
And, Kiwanis International, right? These are different chapters in every city. So we happen to have one here in Madera, but the Madera Rancho serves another Kiwanis, and there was a previous Madera Kiwanis. We are the Greater Madera Kiwanis here.
Why did you have to do that?
Well, I think just
we're the Greater Madera. You're the Madera. I'm the Greater
correct.
Madera.
We service the greater part of Madera. Not that we're better.
Madera County is such a big county.
Correct.
Different cities. Like I said, there's the Madera Ranchos Kiwanis. You had a Madera Kiwanis here, and then to be able to distinguish both of them, you had to create another one, right?
Yeah.
And this was another club, and that's still an ongoing service club alongside other clubs. And Abel, you also belong to one, but I think a lot of these clubs, service clubs, started coming about after World War II, right? Mm-hmm. This was when men were coming back from the war, and a lot of the time they wanted to volunteer, is to provide these services again for the benefit of the community. Not only for scholarships, but other funding programs to be able to provide back and give back. And this was the way, believe it or not, Abel, that I think that veterans came back and felt like this is where I can actually decompress, come back and actually start talking to my colleagues and doing good things to get me distracted from maybe the things that happened during war. And these kind of united men and a lot of times women to come together and formulate these service clubs. So when you see these service clubs, that's what you see. You see a lot of older generational folks out there, right? When I walked in to the Kiwanis, I remember looking at the room and scoping it, and I was like, wow, where's all the young people, right? And typically these clubs were ran by a lot of the older generations. So when I visited other clubs, because we had an inter-club deal where we had to visit different clubs, I saw the same pattern over and over and over.
Right.
So at some point, and this was maybe 10 years ago, at some point, some of those folks are no longer there. So then how do you replenish that, right? And that's where the youth comes in. Are they interested? Are we doing enough to get them in there? Or has this generation kind of shifted in the way services are done for the community?
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that I appreciate the history there, and it does make sense. Right around that same time, post World War II, we had our founder, Melvin Jones, who was an insurance agent, who decided, hey, you know what? We, as business owners, we do a good job of, getting together and, kind of marketing ourselves and, we'll support a certain cause. And, but what if we made that our focal point, right? What if we, instead of always trying to solicit business and take from our communities, what if we made a conscious effort to give back, right? And hence the start of the Lions International began, and it's the initial drive was for Crusades of the Blind, right? They wanted to help those who were had eye issues, fully blind, or maybe they just needed optics. making optics. Appointments and stuff like that affordable for individuals. And so you'll see at doctor's offices, you can here locally in Madera, you can actually drop off an old pair of glasses, prescription glasses, and those get donated to individuals in need, right? And so that's kind of the international type of initiative. But locally, each chapter kind of has their own direction, has their own annual narrative that they want to see, or they want to really attack their goals. And so we do tend in Madera to go after a lot of youth activities and really give back to that. And so, but to your point, same exact thing. I joined in 2016, walking in the meeting, and I'm thinking, man, all these people are my parents' age and much older, grandparents' age. And in fact, a testimony of the age being up there, we have 2 Lions clubs in Madera, or had 2 Lions clubs. We had the evening Lions and we had the breakfast Lions. Well, the breakfast Lions, they were meeting at 5 a.m., right? And and that's pretty early. And so so the attraction for younger folks, or even in their middle-aged folks, was, well, we'll do the evening time because that's a little bit more fun and, with our thing. So the breakfast Lions were left with this older generation. They weren't ever able to replenish their membership, and they literally were passing away and kind of dying off, right? And that's how that club dwindled down to about 3 or 4 members. And we've kind of absorbed them and invited them over to the evening club as we, dissolved the Breakfast Lions Club. Yeah. But nonetheless, even though Evening Lions, we have we've done a lot of good things to recruit and establish that next generation with things like our Leo Club and our Omega Club. Our Leo Club is our high school age club, and Omega is the college age club. And we've adopted them, and we've provided mentorship to them, taught them how to run a club, and we bring them up, and because of that, we see our membership continue to be added to, right? Because we have people kind of in that trajectory. But it would be naive to say that with this new generation, as we start to kind of breed this new generation and steer them towards service clubs, you still do have those quote unquote old timers, right? Mm-hmm. Or those people who have just been doing it a very long time. And oftentimes you see the tug of war between, which direction are we actually going to go with, right? Are we going to accept those new ideas, or are we going to do it the way we've always done it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think as somebody who would be considered on the younger side of that, right? And by younger, I simply mean, I'm in a position where my kids are in school, mm-hmm. right? And whereas most individuals, they don't have any kids left at home. And so they have the time. Maybe they're retired, mm-hmm. right? And so that leaves them with the availability to volunteer and do all the extra stuff and not have any obstacles in their way because they don't have the kids. So because I have a young family, my availability is a lot less than some of those. And I think that's where you start having that, where it's like the older generation says, well, you can't do it anyway, so we're going to be the ones that end up doing it because we're the ones available. So, pipe down, we're going to do it our way, right? And so then, and I think that's kind of like I think one of the biggest obstacles that service clubs have today is fostering those relationships and saying, encouraging the young guys, hey, hang in there, you're mm-hmm. good. We value your ideas, and then you got on the other side, hey, relax, let's find some happy balance, right?
Well, kind of like to your point about clubs, and typically you see that in service clubs, like you have a sunrise Rotary, you have a noon Rotary, mm-hmm. you had the evening Lions, mm-hmm. the breakfast Lions. And like you said, I think the membership on these earlier morning ones are typically geared more to maybe the older generation, right? I remember being asked if I would come out to the Sunrise Rotary, and I go, what time do you guys meet? And he said 6 a.m. I go, well, that may be a little early for me, but I'll tell you what, if you do it in lunch, then I think more business folks can actually meet for lunch. And I think we had this going on prior to COVID, where we were meeting every Thursday. And this was a weekly deal.
Yeah.
And you would see this also with the Rotarians out at the golf course. And, you know, they had their weekly meetings at 12 and typically geared toward business people that would want to come in, and elected officials come in. And you would see the camaraderie that existed there, and also the giving, the generosity of giving. People were always, you know, this is kind of what I learned about the service clubs, that it wasn't really just about getting out there and having this lunch, but really just feeling part of a club. And you had a lot of folks just making it fun, right? So when I walked into Kiwanis, I'll tell you this, the first thing that I saw was like, okay, there's a lot of older people, but they made it very fun. I mean, these were older people acting like kids, you know, finding each other, and you spin the wheel and do this and do that, and cracking jokes at each other. And I go, okay, man, this is actually pretty fun. I can fit in. So I kind of walked into it, and it felt pretty comfortable. And, you know, I think as the years progressed, we started seeing more of these members kind of fade off a little bit. We're trying to always recruit. And then obviously the other Kiwanis club also closed, right? Unfortunately. And I don't know if that was due to budgetary or if it was due to, again, just kind of phasing out because of membership. But I know that at one time it was one of the prominent clubs here in Madera. So I think as the years go by, you know, kind of like what you said, you have your key Lions, your Leos, and your Omegas. We have a Key Club, and then we have a Circle K, Circle K, which is
the
same idea.
It's kind of like the same idea, but I think it's more geared to college folks, right?
Correct, yeah.
And I mean, you're trying to farm these kids so that they can continue to do the service for these for your community. But unless someone's there really, you know, there's so many service clubs in high school right now.
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell my son, have you heard of this? Have you heard of this? And, you know, it's really hard to select because you're only limited on the electives that you have, and you're limited on the choices. But, I mean, selecting a Key Club requires someone to go out there and freshen up and try to persuade them to come on, and here's why we do what we do.
And I think the key part of that is the word service. And that's where some of these clubs have different focus, where, like you said, some of the business-oriented ones are great at raising money. Like, they will raise a lot of money and they will write checks. But when you talk about service, I mean, especially like Kiwanis, it's raising money, but it's being out there. It's running an event. It's, you know, how do we give back, whether it's a food drive or whatever. And same thing with when you have the kid ones. It's, you know, obviously they're not raising as much money, but they're doing more work. It's like, hey, let's go out and we're gonna get this done because we see a need. You know, we, like you said, I know one year for the one we did, you know, they wanted to get jackets for the wintertime. Okay, great. You know, well, we got to get out there and you got to go get the jackets. You know, and I think a lot of that is somehow changed too, because again, now most people just want money. You know, it's like, I have to do this. Somebody died, whatever. I need money, and it's so much easier just I'll pop up a GoFundMe and people will just send me money. Why do I need to go to a service club? Why do I need, you know, to present anything to you? I can kind of do it myself.
Crowdfund it.
Yeah, you know. So I mean, but the label part is definitely where I think you see the big divide, is because most people don't have a problem with, they got to do a lunch anyway, so they'll go to a lunch, or they'll go to a dinner and they'll put their hour in and, you know, give their money here and there. But when you say, hey Saturday, you know, we're going to be busy all day, we're going to do this drive. Like you said, I got kids, you know, we want to go on vacation. And I think post-COVID, everybody has really transitioned more into that me mentality of, I don't want to give up my time. My time is more limited. You know, I want to cherish my time with what I want to do with it, not go just kind of give my time for, you know, this or that. So,
no, I definitely.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say this, but right behind Able is exactly the Lions Town and Country Park. So that was adopted by the Lions. So no, you can't see it right now, but definitely it's there. And a lot of these parks, that's what they adopt. They adopt these parks. We have a Sunrise Rotary Park, and we have another Rotary Park out by Millview.
so we need a Kiwanis Park, is what you're saying.
We do need one.
Okay.
We do need perfectly.
Do you know anybody in city council?
No, I don't, but I know somebody in the planning.
I'm gonna pitch it. That's fine.
Now, I'm glad you guys. I'm glad you brought up the. You know, your experience with like feeling welcomed, right, by the club, because you know, I had a very similar experience, and you know, it can be intimidating. So if you're considering joining, you know, one of these service clubs, you can expect the kind of who's who to be there, right, quote unquote. I mean, this is a small town. Madera is significantly small, and so when you have a small town like this, typically your small business owners or your elected officials. I mean, those are going to be kind of like your bigger names in town, right? And so I can remember walking in and, and just looking around saying, kind of starstruck a little bit, right? Because you had, owners of, the Bridge Store, Fastway Chicken, and Round Table, and Peter Brothers Nursery, and, the movie theater. And you had all these, everybody owned a business. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, oh, I don't own a business. What am I doing here, right? But the minute that you start realizing the work that's actually being done, and that's to Rohi's point, where it's like, the evening lions have always prided themselves on their manpower, right? We can whip up, people to go and work at a pomegranate festival and barbecue, and we're sweating. Mm-hmm. And when you experience that, that's when you really, I think, you fulfill that void of man, I need to help people, right? I mean, you really satisfied that. Because you're literally in the trenches, right? Mm-hmm. You're literally sweating next to somebody, and it doesn't matter what businesses they own. It doesn't matter how successful they've been in their lives. You're an equal, and you're shoulder to shoulder, and you have one mission, and that's, hey, let's get through this. We do Philly cheesesteaks, and if you're from Madera, the Lions Philly cheesesteaks, right? And so those we cook to order, or we cook as they get ordered. We don't just have it in a bucket and throw them together as you order it and let them stay in the warmer. So it's a lot of it's pretty intense, right? So it's almost like teppanyaki back there, right? We're just whipping it up, boom, 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 and serving it out the back. And now that experience right there is pretty neat, but yeah. So these service club members. Don't just kind of stereotype them and say, oh man, these guys are, goody goodies, and I don't belong, and I don't, my social profile ain't big enough for them. If you're willing to put in time, if you're willing to put in work, if you have that time and availability in your schedule, they will greet you with open arms, and they will gladly have you as a member, because we need more of that. There's always capacity for manpower, and you're right. It does get to that point, and it is interesting how post COVID, even with myself, it's like I'm not missing one of my kids' games. Yeah. Like I will not miss one of my kids' games. Even if I have to cancel something, I will, like in a heartbeat. Like no, that's extra. I do that for fun. I do that for extracurricular. I am. This is my core, which is my family, or what I want to do, right? What me and my wife are going to do, and so that is a good point. I appreciate that one.
Yeah, and I think service clubs have to be looked at. Also, it's the way to bridge the public and the government sector in a sense of getting projects done. If we said, hey, look, guys, I really think we need a basketball court right here this side of town. Yeah, you can go through the normal channels and be like, as an individual, I'm going to buy it as a business. Okay, well, that's going to take a certain thing. Or you go to the government and you say, hey, Jose, city council, we need a petition for taxpayer dollars. Or you as a service club can just say, look, we're going to sell pancakes for the next 6 months, and we're going to raise the money for it, right? And get it done. And that's nice because it's a lot less red tape, because it's not, you don't have to go to some business and try to figure out how to make that work, and you don't have to take taxpayer dollars. It's manpower that's going to get it done. And it may mean simple as this, okay, hey, we're going to have to lay the pavement, and we're going to have to put the lines, and we're going to have to do all of that to make it work.
Yeah.
But it gets done a lot faster sometimes, I mean, imagine the park right here, like you're saying. Like, if we were to come to the city and say, like, look, you have to build this park. You have to completely fund it. You have to completely do everything for it. You have to maintain it. It would probably be a lot more difficult than being able to have a club that can at least stand behind it, put their name to it, and do what they do for it. So,
and that's the power of volunteering, right? I mean, a lot of us look at it like you said. You don't want to give up some of your time to volunteer, because you find that your time is more valuable with your family, your time. So whenever these moments come across, I mean, you start contemplating whether or not. But if you're a religious man, there's a saying that the more you give, the more you shall receive, right? And I don't know to what extent, whether it's tithing or what have you, but even your time, for that matter, you get this sense of gratitude that you've done something, you've accomplished. Leading up to the moment, it's like, I don't want to be there, man. But once you're there and you're actually doing the work, you'd be surprised how, just your mind opens up to see, man, this is actually really, I feel very good. I feel like a sense of purpose. And I know that throughout the years, we've done events through not only Teens Ranch, we've gone through the Mother's Day run, we've done poker night, whatever the case may be. And a lot of times it's just being there. And I think when service clubs notice that there's an absence in those people, every one of those people that's in that service club, it creates some type of chemistry because it's a reaction. If I see Abel there, I get an emotion that I remember about Abel. You know what? It's going to be a fun day today because this guy brought up a really good joke the other day.
Yeah.
And then I know we're going to stir it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But if Abel's not there, then who do I look up to? Then if the other person's not there, then you start getting the sense of like, well, shit, if nobody's coming here, then I don't feel like we're becoming, and that's what's happening, I see with a lot of service clubs, is that you're seeing these figures slowly fade away, whether they pass away, whether they move or what have you, or they're no longer interested or they're ill. But not having those figures there certainly has an effect in you. Again, going back to like John Anderson, for example, we had him there. This was our distinguished sheriff that was here. That county was part of the Kiwanis, but there was always a constant comment that kept the meetings interesting, and then that was a back and forth with your dad, right? So when I was involved in it, because I was in the political arena, it always came back to me. So, Mr. Council Member, and so that made me feel, like, okay, I'm welcome here. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm very welcomed, and I appreciate that. And that's the sense of brotherhood, sisterhood, or even just camaraderie that you get when you belong to a service club. And when you don't see that because of, and this is post-COVID, it really took a hit on a lot of the service clubs. And I do see the Evening Lions really thriving. They're always constantly posting stuff. I love the talent show that you guys put together. My son participated in that. And Abel, of course, being your MC, did a great job and really hosting that. But that's what I'm talking about. I mean, to have people like Abel and you, Rohi, I mean, you guys are almost within the same age group. You don't see that right now. I'm hitting 49, and the folks that I see, they're a little older. They're in their 70s. Some are older, and they want to see more of the youth come up in there. And and we haven't really done that. Post COVID, I think we haven't really done a great job of going out there and starting to recruit more of the youth. And again, it's easier said than done, but it takes commitment. And it's someone that's wanting to lead and say, I'm going to go out there and start being an advisor for the kids. Yeah. Rohi did it for a long time, but this guy, you can't lead everything on Rohi. We pretty much shove everything to Rohi. And at some point, I'm afraid he may crack. So we got to make sure we spread that.
That is a real symptom right there, or a real consequence in service clubs is, the same few people find themselves doing the majority of the work, and it becomes overwhelming. And I have a high respect for a lot of my fellow Evening Lions who, there's about a core 10 of them that, are always there, and, some may argue, well, they have the availability. They don't have, the same, they don't have the young kids. They don't have this or that. But nonetheless, they still have to make that conscious decision. I'm about to be arrested. They still have to make that conscious decision to give up that time, right? Because they could easily be on the beach somewhere, retiring life and all that stuff. But no, they see a need and they want to give back to the community. I wanted to, I always like to, kind of water things down a little bit, right? Just so I can kind of better understand it. But when it comes to those old figures, right, or those past figures that we used to look up to, right, and and I can remember Bill Dawson, he would have his joke of the night, and it would always be a real clean one, and everybody would laugh, and then he would say a second one, and then that one would just over the line. He would everybody find him, and he would say something super inappropriate, but everybody looked forward to it. It was super fun, and he's retired out in, I think, Texas now, and so we don't have that anymore, right? And so, as a younger member, I look and I say, man, we don't have that. It used to be this fun. What happened to that? I wish we could do that again, right? But it's a lot like growing up here. have a huge family, a lot of aunts, uncles, cousins, everything, right? And when I was a kid, teenager age, I used to say, man, I can't wait to hang out with my tios and take shots with them, and dance with them and have the same fun that they're having, right? Look how much fun they're having. Now that, I'm in my 30s, same barbecues, same house, same environment, I'm like, man, how come, where's everybody at? How come nobody drinks anymore, this and that, right? And it's like, well, I'm them now, right? Mm-hmm. Like their time has passed, and they're not gone. They're still with us, but they're much older, right? They're not living that same life. And if you want that, you have to, it's up to you now. You got to tell the jokes. You got to give the rides to the kids. You got to go play catch with people. You got to take the shots if that's what you're into, right? Now, I see that with service clubs, right? So you have to be, in my case, the Bill Dawson, bring in the jokes to the table, right? Because now, and I do see that with having the Leos and the Omegas, and I'll run into them in, throughout the everyday life in the community, and they, hey, and they're excited to see you, and you're like, oh man, hey, how's it going? And you take for granted how much impact you actually have on people. And so, I think that's a reminder to ourselves, and certainly a reminder to me, to where it's like, man, you got to make sure that you're making this a memorable experience for those who are like on the fence on whether or not they want to pursue community service, right? And you want to be encouraging, and you want to be enthusiastic, and you want to try to, say, yeah, absolutely, come on, let's go do this, right? And I think that makes the difference. That makes a difference in people's lives on whether or not they do it or they don't.
Yeah, and I think where you have a club that is, if they're too up in the age group, it's not so much the work. It's that when we go do like the Mother's Day run, like I took my whole family. My kids, yeah, they participated in the event, but they also helped with the event, and that's kind of how I was raised. I mean, my dad, when I was a kid, when I was at summer. He would take me to the lunch meeting, and obviously it was a men's group mostly at that time, so it was a little bit more rough around the edges. But he exposed me to that. And it was fun. It was something that I wanted to be a part of. But I think that's also some of that disconnect is like when people join these clubs and they'll just go like, hey, wife, honey, I'm leaving you with the kids, and I'm gonna go do this. No. It's a family thing. Your kids need to be there. They need to help and be a part of that.
Right.
Show them it's fun. Don't be like, come home, oh, man, so much work, and why did I do this? And why did I sign up for it? Because you're like, Dad, I want to do that. It doesn't sound like it was fun.
Roy's saying that indirectly to me.
No, saying that. But I mean, because it does take a different kind of mentality to say like I said, Mother's Day. Okay, we woke up at like 5 a.m. and got ready and worked and did all this stuff and then came home and crashed. And you have to put a smile on it, or otherwise your kids are going to say like, why do we want to do that, Dad? Why you want to keep? No, it's fun. It's something that we get to give back to, and not so much focus on the fact that like it's about the money. No, it's not about the money. It's look, we were able to put on this great event. Like who else is putting on? We're one of the last for-profit, for charity in a sense, runs. Everything else is a business now. So those are the kind of things that you have to really ingrain into the community to understand. Like, look, this is why you join us. This is why you support us.
What's interesting about that race, Abel, is that every year that race continues to grow. Mm-hmm. Even though it's very competitive with all these other races that are taking place.
Well, where's it at?
We hold it at Woodward Park on Mother's Day or the day before. But it's a pretty big event, and I think Andrea and Jeff have really done a good job in our group in establishing that relationship with the Woodward Park folks there, and also with the racing community, the people like to race. How
many years have you guys been doing that?
Shoot, since I can remember, I think
was this year, the 21st year.
21st, yeah. So I actually took third place in my age in that exact race in 2015.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And my wife took first in her age.
Oh, wow.
Because she was the only person, happened to be the only person in her age bracket. Like her age bracket was like perfect. Yeah. Where it was like one other person, and I think that person was in a wheelchair, and my wife barely beat her. No, I'm just kidding.
So, when we get there early enough, you start seeing the registration come in, and then you start seeing, well, where's everybody at? Nobody's racing, but within a period of 15 to 20 minutes before the race,
yeah.
you start seeing this mass crowd just
It's
coming
a,
in.
a 10K, right?
They do a 10K.
Yeah,
out.
2, a
10K.
5, and a 10.
I did the
Yeah.
10K.
Yeah.
'Cause
And- But it's amazing to see how many people come out and participate. I remember taking my son out there, and he wanted to race. You know, this was when he was younger, very active, and I go, all right, we're gonna have to get up early.
yeah.
Let's get out there. And he participated in the race. He wanted to do it. He wanted to show us that he could do it, and it was a good memory for him. So as I tell him, hey, let's do this again. You know, kids, it's harder to really get them to appreciate. And then kind of like you, like you said, I think you have to kind of, I don't say force them to it, but just
Yeah.
kind of guide them to it. And essentially you'll adapt to it. You'll adapt that this is actually something that's purposeful.
Yeah.
It's helpful to your community, and at the same time, it's helpful to you. Because too many of the times, if we allow, and this is me as a parent, if we allow our kids to, kind of go their way, then you're guided by their intuition, right? By their abilities of wanting to do something differently. But you don't know where that is. You don't know where that's leading you. I think as parents, we have to be also guiding them and leading them to what we feel is probably in the best interest for them. Now, there's different clashes. Obviously, what happens with parents growing up, hey, I don't like what you're telling me, Dad. But it's funny how you circle back and you become that parent as well, kind of to what you said. You know, here's Abel going to these parties and saying, I'm going to be there at one time.
Yeah.
And now he's there. The folks out here are no longer carrying the torch. Now it's Abel's response. I mean, it's kind of like
But it's the mentality though you're ingraining in the children, which is again, you got to understand what you're really the bigger picture, which is I'm working, and I'm giving that work and my money to somebody else that needs it. So
Correct.
it's training them that it's not about me. I'm not working for myself. I'm not raising money to buy what I want.
Correct.
I'm doing something selfless, raising this money and giving it to somebody I don't even know.
Yes.
That takes a totally different mentality, and again, it's life changing because it teaches you to work for somebody else to want to do something that's better for somebody else, and again, that's something you've lost completely now, especially is that this younger just in general, I won't even say generation. I think it's just across the board now. I don't want to give you $10. I want the $10 for myself. I need it for me. Instead of realizing, well, I could have done without that $3 cup of coffee if it helps. We get enough people to agree to that, and now Abel gets to go to college for free. You know what I mean? That's the thing that has to happen.
No, and it's funny because I see my son coming home with the chocolates, little case of chocolates, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm selling them for what?" Oh, he says, "For FBLA." And what do you do with that? Oh, gives us money so that we can go out and stay. When we go to these competitions. And I go, "Okay, well, man, shoot. I mean, who buys them from you? You'd be surprised that." If you're in school carrying a box of chocolates, you'd be surprised how many people stop you to say, "Hey, give me a candy bar for $1."
Yeah.
They're thin now.
That was the
though.
thing in high school, but they banned it. So.
They're thin. They're very thin now. I remember back in those days, you used to get a thicker, but now for $1, you're getting these really thin chocolates.
You know, when I was in high school, when I was in high school, they used to have the
bag of
boxes
candy.
with like Reese's, like
Yeah.
you had the good chocolate bars in there. So everybody,
Yeah.
you open up shop in class and you'd sell out pretty quick. But to your point of family involvement, actually the Breakfast Lions had a standing tradition of being an all men's club, and that was actually the reason why the Evening Lions chartered off and started theirs, because some of the men were like, well, our wives are instrumental in the community and the business as well, right? And we want to include them. But, again, you had one of those old standing laws right here. It's a date night with your wife. Now you guys are both on the same page, as far as what's going on. You both have comment. Now you're a team, you're actual team, and you get to kind of, experience that. And a lot of people, gravitate towards that. And because I know you as a couple, or as a couple, we're becoming friendly with you, and then we start, building these friendships, and now our kids get introduced, and it becomes more of a family environment, right?
Yeah.
So there is a lot of benefit to the inclusiveness of your kids or your family.
And one of the things that I heard from is that the evolution of these clubs, because as you mentioned, I think early on these clubs were geared more towards males, right? Male dominated type of clubs. Well, interestingly, yesterday I was, I like TikTok. By the way, if any of you guys are in Congress listening to this, don't ban TikTok. TikTok's good, and I'm not speaking for myself. I'm speaking for millions of people that I've already wrote out there. TikTok's pretty educational at times when you go back and you listen to certain videos that have been hidden for a long time, right? And this one gal that was, she was talking at a graduation for Smith College. I'm not sure if this is an all-women's college or not, but the interesting thing she said, she goes, back in the 1890s, there was I believe the bikes that they used to ride back then were one big wheel in the front and one small wheel in the back. So mainly geared towards males. But as the bike evolutionary stages of the bike, they began to put 2 equal wheels. So therefore, people can ride more. Gave women rise to getting on this bike and actually traveling. Because before they'd have to wait till a horse came by or something. But now with bikes, women can actually travel. They can travel from towns to towns with their suffrage movement, right? And I thought that was pretty interesting how she was explaining that. And again, during this time, this was a time where all these clubs that were formulated mainly to gear for men. Well, the one term that they use to try to discourage women from riding bikes is that they use the term bicycle face. Women were getting a disease called the bicycle face. Or it's not a disease, but it was something that they were generating because they were riding their bikes. Their lifty cheeks or their jaws or something like that. So they were, again, a term utilized to try to discourage women that, hey, you should stay home instead. Bicycle face. That was a term, right? And I found it interesting, and I wanted my daughter and I wanted my wife to see this because I said, look, this is how far this movement has come. Regardless, even with service clubs, that people, I think we've been granted that opportunity to see more of an equality when it comes to these 2 genders, right? Or all genders to come together and be part of this giving service environment, right? But at that stage, I mean, the term, that really struck me and said, bicycle face, huh? Jiminy Christmas. And if you look it up, I mean, I should comment on it and let me know, and I'll try to upload that video so you guys can see that. But I thought that was pretty crazy. But over the years, again, the fact that these women were starting to write, they can run faster, they can start delivering news from one town to the other town to try to, again, do their suffrage movement, and hence how women, started really coming up in this world. And you'd be surprised, I mean, how men back then really felt threatened by this movement. And to this day, I mean, we have these service clubs, like you said, they were geared mainly for breakfast lines, and then moved up to the evening lines. And here we are today. We invite all genders into these service clubs. So if you're thinking of joining a service club, by all means, please reach out to Rohi, myself, or Abel. We'd love to have you guys come in, fill out an application. Doesn't matter where you end up. I think at the end of the day, like you said, Rohi, it's giving and finding a sense of purpose, whether it's you, your family, and everyone's welcome.
Definitely. No. Well, that was a good imitation. Yeah. So we kind of, just in summary, we talked about service clubs. Jose let you know how to reach out and maybe explore different ones. And I will say it is a good opportunity to get a free meal.
That's right.
So you can usually, come as a guest or reach out to somebody who is a member. You come as their guest, and usually, like the evening lines will waive your meal fee, right? And we want you to check out our meeting and all that kind of stuff. So you can take advantage of that, if at the very least.
Now, depending on the meal you want, I mean, the Kiwanis does serve a meal. No, I'm not kidding.
Do you guys still meet at Chico's?
We started again, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to.
So I was president of the Madera Evening Lions Club, and it was my year started in 2020, COVID. I had all these plans. I had Havana Nights as my big fundraiser dinner that I was going to do, and COVID, required that I try to orchestrate all of these quote unquote old timers on how to use Zoom and stuff like that, right? And that was quite the treat. It was quite the experience, but people are resilient, and when they want to be part of something, they adapt and they figure out a way. And so shout out to the Evening Lions during that time who made those adjustments. You know, people who didn't, you know, hardly even know how to save a Word document, right? Here they are, you know, Zooming and, you know, and doing everything remotely and just finding a way. So, and I know that a lot of service clubs to this day still cast their meetings on Zoom for those who, you know, can't be there. Just because it kind of introduced this whole concept of like, you know, how accessible everything is, and how, you know, we just because you can't be there doesn't mean you can't still participate. So, you know, I think that technology is being infused into a lot of these clubs as well, which is good.
I'd like to finish by saying this, is that if you think service clubs, do they work together? Well, we have an event that's coming before you here on the 4th of July. Not only are the Greater Kiwanis, Greater Madera Kiwanis, but also the Evening Lions and your Rotary Club are coming together in partnership with the city and county to put together this 4th of July event. So this is I don't know if it's a first time here in Madera where service clubs come together to work on a joint effort. Again, for us is to provide a show for the community in a controlled area. This is the district fair here at the in the city of Madera. Again, it's not part of the city; it's a district fair owned by the state, but it brings people together so that they can have this controlled environment to see the fireworks spectacular, and at the same time, it avoids people going out there and busting out their own illegal fireworks. That creates a lot of havoc for the city and law enforcement. But again, the Evening Lions took a big role in that last year, volunteering to cook for a lot of the volunteers. And then obviously Kiwanis, we helped gear some of this, and the Rotaries helped us with some of the beverages and what have you. But it turned out to be a pretty good venue. And this is coming up again on the 4th of July. So if you are looking for something to do, bring your family to the District Fair here in Madera. And you will have fun. You will have fun, and you'll be able to see a spectacular of fireworks out there.
There you go.
Roy, any more details on that?
No, I mean, if you want to have either support or you want to be a part of it, reach out. I mean, we're always looking for help, both financially and physically.
All right, fellas. Well, thank you. Hey, let us know what you think about today's show. What comments do you have? What have your experiences with service clubs been? Are you on the fence? Drop a comment. We'll be certainly monitoring those comments, and we'll be happy to respond. And of course, support us by sharing this video to your friends.